Time if you could stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this time, is there any public comment? Go ahead and come up here. It'll be the red button at the bottom of the microphone. Just state your name for the record.
Okay, it's green. Hi, my name is Casey Reich, spelled C-A-S-E-Y-R-E-I-C-H. I am requesting clarification of code 1608070. Is there any way that you can bring that up on the screen? It's for the temporary use permit. If not, I can read it. Okay, particular attention to the first paragraph.
Could you repeat that code for us?
Oh, I'm sorry. 1608070.
She's pulling it up right now.
And I brought
But
it up
you can
on
go
your
ahead.
website. But it seems like there's conflicting information coming from different people depending on who you talk to. The first paragraph states that it's illegal to reside in your RV outside of an RV park for more than 90 days, paraphrasing, of course. I'll let you bring it up. 1608070. And I'm a licensed educator. I'm working on my master's degree, and I still am confused. Anyways, is the information on the website correct?
Yes, it is.
Pardon?
It is.
Yes. Okay. Because it's the same information that was on there in 2003 and the same information that I got this morning, and I even printed it up. So if it's correct, the different departments have said different things about, I guess, I don't know if it even applies to me. I'm really confused about it. I was told that you can't even stay on your property, not even for one day. So, and then it says there 90 days. But I have kind of a different circumstances because I have I have a landscaped yard. I have farm animals because it's a farm. I have 4 acres in alfalfa that's irrigated with water rights. I have, I guess, CCNRs. I came to you a year ago, the neighbors, the CCNR group, came in and said it was basically a dump, a trash heap, they need to clean it up. So I cleaned it up, and then I was told, basically, it's too clean. It looks like somebody might be living there. I can get water from my field at 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And if I need to be there to make sure that my berm doesn't get breached, make sure that the water flows where it's supposed to, I get my 45 minutes allotted time to open and close my gates. And I have to be waiting in line. I'm the second to the last parcel. And if I leave my gates open too long and breach the berm, it's going to cause problems. If I take too much water, it's going to cause problems. If I don't take my water, my fields can die. That being said, I need to be able to go there to work on and maintain my property. And I guess the neighbors have issue with my RV even being on the property at all. I have a $70,000 motorhome. It's not a piece of junk. Nobody's living in it. We don't live on the property. But just having the RV there on my lot, we were getting ready to build my house, so we thought that we needed the TUP just to do owner-builder. I guess we didn't understand the rules. Because, well, after our meeting and the welcoming committee of neighbors, we got very discouraged. We were told we can't even use our parcel, there's a foundation there. We were told we couldn't even use the foundation at all. It was garbage, it was junk, and the person that sold us the property didn't go through the proper channels and do anything right. So it was during COVID, we couldn't get a hold of anybody. By the time we got a hold of somebody on the phone, a very nice lady from, I think it was building department, anyways, told us, yes, you can build on that foundation, but you need a letter from your engineer. So we got the letter from our engineer, but when we heard that at that meeting, we were very discouraged. We said we don't need a TUP because we decided that we were in over our heads. We didn't want to build it ourselves. It was just too much. So long story short, we went and tried to talk to Ray over in planning to find out, or not planning, building. He said that you cannot build on it. We got the letter we were told we needed, took the letter, and they said, oh, that's not enough. That's not going to work. Your engineer needs to do other tests.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. If I may interrupt you, public comment is limited to 3 minutes. No action can be taken by this board when it comes to public comment. What I can give you is that just work closely with Public Works and Planning and Building, and they can kind of guide you through the process. I know the process might be frustrating for you, but there is a set of rules that we do have to follow. And then also the other thing I was going to mention was, I spaced it, but if I think of it, I'll be sure to remind you of
Okay,
it.
because we tried to go through the other channels and felt like we weren't getting any answers. We kind of had our questions. I tried reaching out to Ward 1 Commissioner Justin Heath, left a couple messages. We played phone tag, and that's where we are. I guess I don't really know who to talk to resolve the problem.
Have you been before the Planning Commission?
We have gone before the planning director. We had a meeting with him Monday, and was actually told you can't even stay there, not even 1 day. So according to the website, it says up to 90 days. We are confused on that end, I guess. My questions are not really getting answered. Kind of confused. So,
Okay, thank you for your public comment.
thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Sean Reich. I have the property at 4886 Aran. I own the property and the water rights to it. You guys remember the last September we came to a commission meeting and application for a TUP. It kind of went off the rails. My wife and I felt completely attacked. That's neither here nor there. But after public comments, we rethought our plans and our options. So Troy Peak made a comment at that meeting that said that our plans couldn't be built on. We went directly to the Planning Commission the next day and we told them that we didn't plan on getting a TUP because we were not going to live on the property while it's being built. We went directly from there over to the building department. We told the building department, asked for any paperwork on that, on the foundations, anything that they had. I was told that there was no permits pulled for the foundation, there was no inspections, there was nothing done for that. And I would need more than a letter from my engineer. I testified in front of you guys that I had a certified engineer, engineered plans, which I do. So, a long story short, Monday we had a great meeting with Randy and his new building inspector. She was able to, within 24 hours, get me all the paperwork that I needed. All of the inspections, all of the permits, everything was up to date. And just for the record, Mr. Polk did everything correctly. Everything passed, everything was right. She said if I had an engineer's letter, I could build on that property. Well, I guess the whole problem is, and my point of being is the TUP process used to come through you guys. And I wouldn't exactly hand over all power without some oversight and maybe an appeals process. And that's really all I got.
Okay, thank you for your public
All
comment.
right, oh, one more thing. We redesigned because our plans went out of out of date. So I had to redesign and go back into planning. So we are going to build there. We talked to planning, or to Randy yesterday, and he said that come up with the plan. So I'm in engineering right now. We're going to have plans built. We're going to build on that property. That was my plan in the first place. It's my plan now. I thank you very much for your time and consideration. Any kind of meeting that you have or anything that we can get together and talk about any of this, I'd be open for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Noting none, we'll move to a verification of the posting of the agenda, please.
Pam Moore, for the record, the agenda was posted on September 12th between the hours of 8 and 11 at the locations listed on the agenda in accordance with statutes.
Thank you, Pam. This is going to be a revised agenda. Can I get an approval of the agenda as revised?
I move to approve the agenda as revised.
Second?
Seeing there's a motion and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Moving on to 6A, consideration and possible action, approval of the minutes of the meeting held on August 21st, 2024.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes of August 21st, 2024.
Second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Moving on to appointments, 7A, presentation of employee service awards for the third quarter of 2024. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Frost, Churchill County Assistant County Manager. First off, I just want to thank all the employees for their dedicated service and their hard work for this community. And if we could have the commissioners make their way down to the backdrop there for pictures, we can go ahead and get started. So let's start with the 5 years of service. We have one person with 5 years of service from the Alternate Public Defender's Office, Wright Knoll. Okay, moving on to 10 years of service from the Assessor's Office, Leslie Nodenstein. And she's not here today, so. Again, with 10 years of service from the District Attorney's Office, Chelsea Sanford. Also with 10 years of service and also from the District Attorney's Office, Jeff Weed. And finally, with 15 years of service from the Road Department, Paul Merritt. Paul's not here. We'll make sure that that gets to him. And congratulations to everyone. Thank you for your service.
Thank you all for those years of service. We'll move on to 7B, public hearing, consideration and possible action, Bill 2024-D, Ordinance 32, an ordinance amending Title 16 of the Churchill County Code, Churchill County Code to provide the planning director administrative authority to issue TUPs and other matters related thereto. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Joe Sanford for the record. This is an ordinance that establishes the primary purpose is to have the administrator, which would be the Director of Public Works, authorized to issue temporary use permits with an appeal process through the Planning Commission at the applicant's request. There are a couple other amendments that are part of this. There are some requirements for additional documentation to be made prior to the issuance of temporary use permit. There's also some limitations made on temporary use permits for home construction, specifically a limitation that they cannot extend beyond 3 years. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I know Director Hines is also here with some information about the TUPs and the history of those.
Thank you, Joe. Is there any questions or comment to Joe?
Joe, and appeals will still come through the Board of County Commissioners, right?
Yes, so the first appeal from the director will go to the Planning Commission, and any appeal from a Planning Commission decision will be made to this board.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there any public comment? Noting none, a motion, please.
I move to adopt Bill 2024-D, Ordinance 32 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. 7C, presentation of public lands and natural resource tracking list. Jeremy Drew with RCI.
Commissioners, good afternoon. Am I on? Swap them. How about now? I feel like a Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? All right. For your record, Jeremy Drew, Principal Resource Specialist with Resource Concepts. It was a beautiful day to drive across Churchill County on Monday with some snow on the mountaintops and again back today. So glad to be with you all now that fall maybe is actually here. The tracking list, I'll be quick with. There's actually an FRTC IEC meeting at 2 o'clock, so I will excuse myself as soon as my updates are done and head to that. Not a whole lot has changed in terms of how the Navy is staging their implementation of the FRTC modernization. There's still a lot of focus right now on B16. I certainly appreciate the resolution on both Lone Tree, Sand Canyon, and Pole Line roads. I think we're further along with Lone Tree because we know where we want to go, all pun intended. And I think the path to get there is pretty straightforward. On Sand Canyon and Pole Line, we're still having some discussions around that being a minor county road and not requiring maintenance. And so I think for the foreseeable future, ironing out how we move forward on the roads and making sure the first batch of grazing compensation in B16 is right is really going to be the focal point before we start moving on to other areas. The Navy
Jeremy, which one did you say was not
in terms of the roads or which range?
yeah.
So roads-wise, Sand Canyon reroute and Pole Line reroute. The BLM, those were, the roads that are being rerouted were minor county roads historically, and they were not maintained by the county. The proposed Navy design and what they have budgeted for through the EIS process does not meet a county road standard. And so our view on that is that that road should remain a minor county road without maintenance. And that provides us some protection from liability under NRS in terms of that designation. The BLM is telling us their right-of-way rules and regulations require us to maintain that road. And so that's kind of the sticking point at this point. Yep. Okay. Any other questions on FRTC before I move off?
And just clarification on that, 2 meetings back, 3 meetings back, we had that ordinance just stating where we stood on that and that. These are our 2 options. This is what we want to see, just for on the record as well.
Yeah, and I think that will be helpful, and I won't be surprised if that comes up later this afternoon. So the 2 options, just to remind everyone that we kind of laid out, is either don't build it to a county road standard, designate it a minor county road with no maintenance, or build it to a county road standard and have the Navy pay for the maintenance on that. Okay. Moving off of FRTC, a couple of items that are coming ripe. One we'll talk about on the next agenda item, and that's the BLM's Solar Energy Programmatic EIS. That came out in final copy on August 30th. So that initiated a 30-day protest period and a 60-day governor's consistency review. I'll get in the nuts and bolts of that on the next item, just to flag the schedule for you all. The BLM Greater Sage Grouse Resource Management Plan update we anticipate coming out probably any day now. I think they're basically waiting on the Washington office. That will initiate the same process. So we'll have 30 days to protest if we think it's warranted, and the governor will have 60 days for a consistency review because they're updating a resource management plan.
What option did they pick on that one? Or did they do like a hybrid?
On sage grouse?
Yeah.
Sage grouse were still embargoed under cooperating agency, so I can't disclose details, but I will tell you it will be a blend of their 5 options. Yeah.
Jeremy, this is Chris. Do the 30 days and 60 days run concurrently or consecutively?
Concurrently,
Thank you.
together. Just make sure my vocabulary is appropriate on that. Both of these efforts I've had concern about, and we've talked about in the past from the beginning, because both of them are west-wide efforts. So the solar programmatic EIS covers, I believe, 11 states. The sage grouse effort is range-wide, so you have like 9 different states that they're trying to plan all out of the Washington, D.C. office. And we flagged from the beginning on both of those processes that that was going to be problematic. I hate it when I'm right, but I think we're right. And I'll show you why on the maps coming up. The other thing that just opened up as relates to renewable energy, NV Energy's proposed GreenLink North 500 kV transmission line that would essentially run across the county more or less parallel to Highway 50 has come out for draft. So that comment period is open for 90 days. We have until December 11th on that, so I'll probably be back out at the meeting closest to December 11th to go over our comment letter. We've done a lot of work in the background as cooperating agency, making sure the alignments were right on that. And the attached map that I gave you to your support material, I would just point out that the green line on that map is the proponent proposed line, and there's 2 areas of purple highlight in Churchill County, one immediately south of City of Fallon around the city's landfill. NV Energy, when they originally proposed that alignment, went right through the middle of those RMP parcels that we picked up in the lands bill. And that was going to be problematic, having a 500 kV line over the top of what we hope are gravel pits. So working in the cooperating agency status program and under our cooperating agency status, BLM modified their proposed action to actually stay south of those parcels. And then the other one is just north of Cold Springs along Highway 50 and kind of what they call the Desatoya Spur. So that little spur of the mountain that runs out closest to Highway 50. If you'll recall, that used to be wilderness study area. In the lands bill, we pulled that boundary back. And lo and behold, the alignment ended up going right through that void space. And what we pushed for there was making sure they stayed north of the existing line, because there are some bighorn sheep habitat considerations, and quite frankly, being up and over the top of the mountain just doesn't make a ton of sense. And so those are 2 instances where I think being a cooperating agency has helped us kind of get ahead. Otherwise, we'd be recommending that now. And I think both the proponent and the BLM understand why we're pushing for that. So it was nice to see that end up under the preferred alternative. I would say this is what happens when you plan at the state or district level and not at a national level. So that's where we stand there. Again, we'll be coming back to you either late in November or in early December with a letter. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions as relates to the tracking list.
Is there any questions or comments from staff for Jeremy? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to 7D, consideration and possible action. Approval to prepare a protest to the Bureau of Land Management final environmental impact statement for the utility scale solar and energy development programmatic environmental impact statement, that's a mouthful, and proposed resource management plan amendment. Jeremy?
Yes, so Jeremy Drew, for your record, with Resource Concepts. Again, in your packet, you kind of have a proposed FAQs for the BLM. Again, this is a document that we reviewed and commented on some months ago during the draft EIS process. Again, this is something that's being driven primarily out of the Washington, D.C. office across a host of western states. If you'll recall back then, I believe there were 5 different action alternatives, and the no action, which is basically the proposed or the plan that has been in place since 2012 that is either lands are closed for solar application or there's a variance process. And if a developer wants to go into a variance area, they have to come to the county before they even get to NEPA and say, here's where we want to develop, any issues. It's worked at varying degrees of success in other counties where I've seen projects come forward. Thus far, I don't think that process has played out in Churchill County, but I would imagine it's only a matter of time. In terms of what the BLM was proposing back several months ago, they had identified a preferred alternative that had a whole host of resource-based exclusion areas, so they wouldn't allow solar applications in wilderness, for example. They excluded development or applications in any area that had greater than 10% slope. And then they designated this screening criteria for transmission proximity, which was basically a solar application had to be within 10 miles of an existing transmission line that was over 100 kilovolts. And so what we've got on the next slide is a map of kind of where we stand now. And all the pink areas within the county are those areas that are closed to solar application, which is a pretty significant part of the county. The blue areas, if someone wanted to develop, they could go there. But again, they'd have to go through that variance process, which includes us early in the process, which I am a big proponent of. Excuse me. If you look at the proposed action, what you'll see is, again, the pink is the exclusion areas, the green is open for solar application, and the stipple is open for application but avoidance. So essentially, a developer would have to prove why they can't develop somewhere else in the county. What they changed on this from the draft to the final, and I think it's a procedural issue for them, they increased the area from the distance from power lines from 10 to 15 miles, and they also dropped the existing power line criteria from 100 kilovolts to 69. So you're talking any distribution line in the county is now being picked up as kind of a planning criteria. What that has resulted in is significant open areas along the Carson Sink in the north end of Dixie Valley and Edwards Creek Valley. My favorite spot is the open application area up in the top of the Cherry Valley in the Clan Alpines, which I don't think anyone would actually develop there, but it certainly brings to mind some areas that probably don't make sense. The other thing that we mentioned in our draft EIS comments is they hadn't incorporated some of the FRTC modernization, and you'll see that that carried forward here. So all that area up along the east side of the Carson Sink is actually, much of that is within the proposed, well, the actual B20 withdrawal area. And so I think this shows that we've got some real issues with the map. And again, I think the primary problem with that is when you're driving something from a national level and you're trying to get the right mapping layers for 10 to 12 different states, you just flat miss things. Unfortunately, they didn't pick that up in our comments, but certainly we don't need to spend time as a county going forward dealing with solar applications in places that flat aren't going to happen. And so on the next slide, what you'll see is some main themes of potential protest. I'm sorry, Pam, it's 2 slides down. There are a host of other counties that will protest. I know Humboldt, Eureka, and White Pine County have already approved a protest of this plan. I believe others are in the queue. I'll be talking to Lyon County about this tomorrow. Again, I think the main themes of a protest, should this board approve that, would be our concern with that west-wide planning area and the issues that creates, especially in our case with the NDAA and some of our designations, the need to keep that variance process, and so we have a formal pre-NEPA consultation for any solar project that's proposed on BLM land. There's really nothing in this plan that would prevent speculative projects, and that's what you're starting to see in a lot of the other counties. Many of the exclusions, and this is in particular interest for us, are based on resource management plans that are way out of date. So we're under the Carson City Consolidated Plan, and I think it's probably about 5 years, and that's being generous, out of date. And so there's some things that just flat aren't in there. And then again, them kind of changing the rules on where solar could occur and the size of those lines is a problem. So my recommendation at this point, I tend to not like to protest final environmental impact statements because it means I didn't do a good job leading up to that. But in this case, my recommendation would be to protest. Again, what we've seen in other counties and not yet in Churchill, though I'd anticipate it's just a matter of time, is solar developers see those big green polygons on the map, and without getting out and doing boots on the ground, it kind of almost becomes a gold rush where they want to lay claim and block out a space, and then you're using county time and resources to deal with a project that's probably never going to go forward. but you can't assume that, right? And so to me, getting the planning areas right and making sure developers are focused on areas that are more important is really key. And so I think we should protest and work through some additional steps with BLM to see if we can get this thing right. With that, Chairman, I would yield for any questions.
Is there any questions or comments from board or staff? Seeing none, any public comment? A motion, please.
I move to authorize the county manager in coordination with RCI to develop and send a formal protest to the Bureau of Land Management's final environmental impact statement for the utility-scale solar energy development problematic EIS and proposed resource management plan amendment.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Item E was withdrawn on this agenda. Moving on to 7F, consideration and possible action, review of Churchill County Child Protective Services summary and maltreatment allegations for fiscal year 2024. Shannon?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the board. For the record, Shannon Ernst, Churchill County Social Services. As we're required to contract with the state of Nevada to provide Division of Child and Family Services for investigation only, this is the report that is to be submitted to us annually. It really shows how many calls come in when you call DCFS. Maybe you have an allegation, there's a concern for a child. And so this number did go down slightly from fiscal year 23 with 364 calls. Out of those calls, then they're substantiated through investigation. Is it just a referral, resource or referral, and how that's handled? And you do have the breakout in your packet of each one of those. The number for substantiated cases has remained about the same, but the call numbers coming in has reduced. So today, this is just for your approval to accept for fiscal year 2024.
Is there any questions or comments from board or staff? Is there any public comment? Noting none, a motion, please.
I don't think we need
No, you should have a motion on it. I apologize.
No, there's not one on there.
I believe there would
We
just be a
apologize.
recommendation to accept the report as presented.
Thank you.
So I make a motion to recommend to accept the report as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. We'll move on to FG, consideration and possible action, ratification of an agreement between Aging and Disability Service Division and Social Services for funding to provide in-home homemaker services to individuals deemed eligible per ADSD service specifications in the amount of $119,601.36. Shannon?
Again, for the record, Shannon, Churchill County Social Services. So we have been awarded our funds for the Homemaker program at the Life Center. This serves approximately 72 individuals for in-home assistance. Basically, it's providing laundry assistance, cleaning assistance, and then, as you know, of May of 2024, we expanded to yard services. So we're excited to receive these funds and maintain that program and ask for the ratification today.
Any questions or comments from board or staff? Is there any public comment? Noting none, a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the ratification as presented.
Second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. 7H, consideration and possible action, ratification of a modified agreement between the Nevada Housing Division and Churchill County Social Services to extend the expenditure of Affordable Housing Trust Fund to June 30th, 2025. Shannon?
Again, for the record, Shannon Ernst, Churchill County Social Services. Normally, these funds are provided to us for a 3-year term. These are housing dollars to keep individuals in their home and reduce individuals being moved to the streets. We had significant issues finding places that would maintain individuals, so we did not expend the funds as planned in that 3-year time frame. We did negotiate with Nevada Housing Division, and they have provided us 1 more year. So we're asking for that ratification just for that time limit.
Any questions from board or staff? Is there any public comment? Noting none, a motion, please.
I move to approve the ratify the agreement as presented.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. 7I, consideration and possible action, ratification of Churchill County Social Services budget submitted to the State of Nevada Attorney General's Office to support FAST programming in the Adult Detention Center in the amount of $99,197 for COSSUP from August 19th, 2024 to September 30th, 2025. Shannon?
Again, for the record, Shannon, Churchill County Social Services. Normally, such items like this is a ratification to an agreement or to the actual amount. We usually don't become before the board, but now they're requiring us to have this budget actually signed before we get the agreement. So it was very different as I had Chairman Ghetto sign. We wanted to bring this before you. This was COSEP funds that were awarded for a 2-year period through to a region, and they are passed through the Attorney General's office. Based on other communities not expending funds in a timely fashion, federal COSEP has allowed us to extend our grant for 1 more year. So instead of expiring the end of September, it will be extended until September 30th of 2025. They're going to award us the same amount we've received the last 2 years, the $99,197. So we're excited to have this. This does support our work within the jail system, which is the Forensic Assistance Safety Triage Team, and works with the courts. It's really taking individuals that are in jail, wrapping services around them, so when they get out, they're less likely to reoffend, getting them to treatment, mental health services, etc. If there's any questions, I can answer.
Any questions or comments for Shannon? Any public comment? Noting none, a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll make a motion to approve and ratify the matter as presented.
Second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 7J, consideration and possible action, application for continued support funding for the Churchill Animal Protection Society, CAPS, in the amount of $17,000, with an annual update of activities. Chris, do you want to give us a little brief overview on this one? And then we'll hear from
Yes, thank you,
CAPS.
Mr. Chair. So the county's had a long-standing history of supporting CAPS, the Churchill Animal Protection Society, and typically we have supported at an annual rate of $20,000. As everyone is aware, we have gone through some budget reductions, and unfortunately, our community support budget line was also reduced by 15%. And so CAPS is here today to request the support of $17,000. And if I may, because of these budget reductions, we were also in a situation where we are not able to construct the CAPS building as we had so desired. We have been meeting with CAPS because obviously they still have needs at their existing building that need to be overcome. And so myself, Public Works Director Hines, and the County Manager Jim Barbie, we've been meeting with CAPS to kind of go through their list of immediate needs and gathering some quotes in terms of what that may cost. And so I'm just letting you know at this point, sometime in the future, we will be coming to this board and request for some financial assistance on getting some of those items taken care of.
Thank you, Chris. The floor is all your guys'.
Alrighty, my name is Julia Emile. I am the current Executive Director of Churchill Animal Protection Society, and as you heard, we are just here to request our yearly funding of $17,000. So just in case anyone isn't aware, we'll just give a little history and what we do at CAPS. So originally founded in 1986, have been operating since, moved through a few different locations, and now we're at our current building out on Pasture Road. Our main focus is on taking in, homeless animals, either through owner surrenders, working with our local animal control to take in animals. We have been working with them pretty closely lately to try to get their numbers down because they've been very overburdened, mainly with dogs. And so taking them in, and then we do spay or neuter, vaccinate, and microchip each animal that comes through us. And then find them good homes, so adopting them back out. We also still do offer our food pantry for low income in the community. We've been able to continue that. Unfortunately, our spay neuter assistance program that we were able to offer, for several years before, we still don't have funding for that, so we'd like to get that up and going at some point, but right now that's just kind of suspended. But yeah, our kennel situation, we have 20 dog kennels, 10 cat kennels, and we've been pretty maxed out for a while now. So the funding will really just go to our general operations, vet bills that are very high, kind of stuff like that, keeping us operating.
Anything else you guys would like to add? Okay.
That's it for me.
Any questions or comments from board or staff? Okay, any public comment? Noting no public, motion, please.
I move to approve continued support funding for the Churchill Animal Protection Society in the amount of $17,000 for FY 2025.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries, and we'll go ahead and take a picture over at the board.
We're not going down.
Okay, we'll move on to 7K, consideration of possible action, advanced step placement for Daniel Keys for the position of fleet service mechanic at zero additional cost per year. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Spross, Churchill County Assistant County Manager, HR Director, for the record. So this action is to approve a advanced step placement for Daniel Keys for the fleet services mechanic. Back in August, we had a mechanic retire from the general services. The road supervisor polled the existing mechanics there to see if anybody would be interested in taking that spot. And the current fleet mechanic said that he would, which caused a vacancy in the fleet services department. We posted that position. We received 16 applications, and the road supervisor and his staff interviewed 7 people. And Mr. Keys kind of rose above all and was offered the job at a step 5. This is a zero cost increase to the county, as the current fleet services mechanic is also at a step 5. And so there will be no additional cost to the fleet services budget. And with that, I will yield for any questions.
Any questions or comments for Chris? Is there any public comment? Noting none, a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Daniel Keys to the position of Fleet Services Mechanic at an advanced step placement of grade 54, step 5.
Second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Thank you, Chris. Did anyone have any of the letters received they wanted to pull? Seeing none, we'll jump to old business, 9A, consideration and possible action, rescheduling of special meeting to canvass the votes of the 2024 general election in November 2024. Pam?
I'm sorry, I was busy training.
The rescheduling of the canvass of
Yes.
the votes.
So what we would like to do is see if we can reschedule that. It was a Friday, and you guys didn't realize that. We were thinking that Thursday night would be perfect. If you guys wanted to do Thursday night at 5, that would work for us, because we think that we're going to be still getting things ready to present to you that night. So we think we're going to need Thursday to work on that. So if that works for you guys, otherwise we could leave it on the 15th and do it earlier in the day, whatever you want to do, but we can make the Thursday evening work.
That's what I was just pulling up.
So that's November 14th?
November 14th.
Okay.
That should work, yeah. Do we need a motion, please?
I move to reschedule a special meeting to canvass the votes of the 2024 general election for November 14th, 2024 at 5 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. Moving on to new business, 10A, consideration and possible action, appointment of the apportionment of the fiscal year 2024 greater than anticipated geothermal revenue in the amount of $481,593.97. Sherry?
Thank you. Hi, the Churchill County received $1,181,593.97 in geothermal revenues in the fiscal year 2024, which resulted in a greater than anticipated budgeted revenues in the sum of $481,593.97. The recommendation is to allocate the greater than anticipated revenues as follows. Excuse me. $452,612.91 to social services for expenditures not covered by grant revenues. $336,000 for the entire amount for the 270 North Main Street remodel, and the remaining $116,612.91 to various expenditures, which includes 2 vehicles. And then the remaining $51,741.95 to the Building Reserve Fund, since their ending fund balance did not meet the beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2025. This allocation also includes a reduction in the budgetary amount to the debt service fund by a minus $22,760.89, since only 15% is required to go into the debt service fund due to covenants. So it also should be noted that the 2 buildings, the 270 and the 290, the actual buildings were funded by grants, just not the remodel. Let me know if you have any questions.
Any questions or comments for Sherry? Is there any public comment? Noting none, a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the apportionment of the greater than anticipated FY24 geothermal revenue as recommended by the comptroller.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Moving on to 10B, consideration and possible action, apportionment of the fiscal year 2024 greater than anticipated CTX revenue in the amount of $168,988.94. Sherry?
Thank you. Churchill County received a total of $8,630,988.94 in the CTX revenue, which is the sales tax revenue for 2024, which resulted in a greater than anticipated revenues in the sum of $168,988.94. It is recommended to leave the leave the apportions as they were already apportioned, because it was done by percentages, and then take the additional increase, which was in the general fund, of $168,970.94 to be moved to social services to cover expenditures that were not covered by grants, which normally would have been covered by the CCCOM transfer, which was eliminated in this fiscal year, which normally would have been $200,000, which is no longer happening. That's what I'm requesting, please.
Any questions or comments for Sherry? If not, a motion, please. Any public comment? I feel like it's, gotta ask, but a motion, please.
I move to approve the apportionment of the CTX revenue as recommended by the comptroller.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. We'll move on to the consent agenda. If there's nothing anyone would want to pull, a motion to approve that.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Second it.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, motion carries. We'll move on to anything that anyone has to consider for a future agenda item. Okay, if not, we'll move to commissioner and management staff reports. Justin?
So I attended a CART meeting and also a Wahan Conservation District meeting last week.
I had a busy 2 weeks. I attended the Books, Bites, and Beverages at the library. It was a great fundraising event for the library. I was also able to attend the library director interviews that were here in the commissioner's chambers. I went to the Frazzini building dedication. It was a great event as well. I was also joined by the City of Fallon and Churchill County School District for September Suicide the Proclamation and Dying of the Fountain. I have an IEC meeting after this meeting and then an RTC meeting this morning. Buzz?
I don't have anything except I want to ask Chris a question. Is there a date and time for the meeting with Harvey Whittemore and the other folks?
Yes, there's a date and time selected for that.
What is the date?
Why don't we maybe talk about that off record with staff, just so it's not all the way out here?
Okay, yeah, we'll get that date and time to you.
All right.
Sherry?
We were just working on getting the fiscal year closed. We have the auditors coming at the end of the month, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Joe?
No update.
Chris?
Yeah, just for the board's information, the Library Board of Trustees has made an offer, and it has been accepted for a library director, and that person is due to start on October 14th.
Thank you, Chris. Pam?
I just wanted to say we're business as usual, collecting taxes and working on the election.
Okay, thank you, guys. Claims and payroll are going around. At this time, is there any public comment? Noting none, we stand adjourned.